So in this presentation, I'm going to tell you a brief meaning of factor analysis. In short, what does the factor analysis mean? Uses of factor analysis, applications of factor analysis. So my main topic is applications, but I'm going to tell you meaning and uses as well because it's very important to understand what is factor analysis and where do we use factor analysis and why do we use it to understand what are the applications of factor analysis. So let's understand what is factor analysis. Factor analysis, according to Fabregat and Wegener 2012, is a set of statistical procedures designed to determine the number of distinct constructs needed to account for the pattern of correlations among a set of measures. उन्होंने ये बोला था फेब्रिकार एंड वेगनर ने कि फैक्टर एनालिसिस जो है वो एक सेट ऑफ स्टैटिस्टिकल प्रोसीजर्स है जो कि किस लिए यूज किया जाता है हम लोग ताकि डिटरमाइन कर सके डिस्टिंक्ट कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट्स डिस्टिंक्ट यानी कि डिफरेंट कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट्स जो कि रिक्वायर्ड है टू अंडरस्टैंड द पैटर्न ऑफ कोरिलेशंस कि एक जो सेट ऑफ मेजर्स है उसके अंदर जो पैटर्न ऑफ कोरिलेशंस है उसके लिए जो नंबर ऑफ constructs required है. So basically factor analysis एक multivariate statistical technique है. Multivariate here refers to a distribution where there are multiple variables, more than two variables are present. And it is used to identify the factors underlying the variables by means of clubbing the related variables in the same factor. This means that factor analysis is used when we have to club together the overlapping or related variables in the same factor, and we have to make various categories in which the factors are distinct from each other, but they contain variables which are of same type or which are overlapping variables. So it is a dimension reduction technique which reduces the large number of variables into a few factors. So this is a technique of dimension reduction. It means that when we have multiple dimensions of a single factor, we reduce it into a single factor. This means that we, as a researcher, as a statistician, when we receive or collect the data in which we have multiple variables available and those were related to each other more than 0.5, मतलब कि वो बहुत ही ज्यादा एक्सट्रीम लेवल पे कोरिलेटेड है, लाइक 0.9 कोरिलेशन आ रहा है उन वेरिएबल्स का, ये 0.8 कोरिलेशन आ रहा है, तो इट मीन्स कि वो लोग काफी बहुत ज्यादा ही वो जो वेरिएबल्स है वो ओवरलैपिंग है. तो हम तब उन डायमेंशन या वेरिएबल्स को क्लब करके एक सिंगल फैक्टर बना देते हैं. सो दिस टेक्निक प्रोवाइड्स हिडन डायमेंशंस अमंग द वेरिएबल्स व्हिच मे नॉट बी ऑब्जर्वेबल फ्रॉम डायरेक्ट एनालिसिस. तो इट हेल्प्स in identifying those latent variables which are hidden, which we cannot observe through direct analysis. So if I talk about who initiated or who started or who developed this technique, so the pioneer was Spearman. So Spearman developed the factor analysis and introduced it in psychology in 1904. But the term itself, the term factor analysis itself, was first introduced by Lewis Thurston in 1931. So now let's talk about what are the uses of factor analysis. So factor analysis is used to reduce the large number of variables into few underlying factors. तो it is used जहाँ पर हमारे पास multiple variables, multiple रेंज ऑफ वेरिएबल्स अवेलेबल हैं, तो जब हम उनको इतना ज्यादा मैनेज नहीं कर पाते तो हमें क्या करना है, उन जो कॉमन या कुछ ऐसे वेरिएबल्स हैं जो बहुत ज्यादा हाईली कोरिलेटेड हैं, उनका जो ओवरलैपिंग है वो बहुत ज्यादा है, तो हम उनको क्लब करके एक सिंगल या बहुत ही लिमिटेड फैक्टर्स में कन्वर्ट कर देते हैं. तब हम फैक्टर एनालिसिस का यूज करते हैं ताकि हम लोग एक्सप्लेन कर सकें कि जो ग्रुप कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है उसमें कितनी वेरिएबिलिटी है, क्या डिफरेंट डिफरेंट डायमेंशंस वो मेजर कर रहा है. It also helps in investigating the relationship among the group of variables and segregate them into different groups on the basis of similar characteristics. तो factor analysis जो है वो इसलिए यूज किया जाता है ताकि हम लोग समझ सके कि क्या वेरिएबल्स के बीच में रिलेशनशिप है एंड जो डिस्टिंक्ट वेरिएबल्स उनके हम अलग फैक्टर्स बना सकें, जिनके सेम कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं उनको हम single factor में convert कर सकें. It also establishes the reliability of a test. So to understand the internal consistency and how to what extent the items are correlated in a test, we use factor analysis. It is also used to construct a questionnaire to measure an underlying variable. For example, if I have to uh, prepare a questionnaire to maybe to measure happiness or satisfaction. So to construct a questionnaire, I also use a factor analysis, that what are the factors underlying satisfaction or happiness, so that I can measure them into using my questionnaire. So it is also used when I have to construct a questionnaire for a particular variable or a dimension. The last is to reduce data set to a more manageable size, because it's very difficult to manage 500 or 100 or 50 even variables together. So to make the data manageable, to make those variables manageable, we have to reduce them. So for that purpose also factor analysis is used. Now I'll come to the main topic, applications of factor analysis. So applications, if I'll talk about applications, a factor analysis is a wide range of applications. It is used in multiple various fields like psychology, human resource management, marketing, social sciences, and many more. So, but I am going to discuss few of them, my main focus would be on psychology and psychometry. So first, I'll discuss about psychology and psychometry. So, factor analysis is a popular area in psychology and psychometry, and it's many of its applications of principles find its application in solving problems concerning common social life. So, its major and important applications are: first is in theory development. So, to develop a theory, I need certain variables, certain factors on which my theory would be based. So, factor analysis technique is used to identify underlying variables and reducing those factors into a number of factors required for a theory. So, if I'll talk about an example, there are theories of intelligence like Spearman's two-factor theory, Thurston's theory of mental abilities, and then Guilford's model of intellect. So these are the theories which are based or which are formed or developed using factor analysis. So factor analysis is used to determine the factors underlying variables and to club the overlapping variables into a single factor and then forming a theory. Next is a test development. So factor analysis, it helps in deciding what is the factor structure, how those items to be managed, how those items to be presented, how many numbers of items would be related to a single factor, and what are the variables under a single factor which would be measured in a test. So all these tasks are performed using the factor analysis. It helps in providing a name to the concept to be measured by a test. For example, if I'm measuring depression, so it provides that these are the factors which are related to depression. So this test would measure depression. And also it is useful in search for primary interest, attitude, and temperament traits. So factor analysis is used to find out what are the primary interest of the test, what attitude would it measure, and what are the traits that would be measured using the test. So to understand with an example, in 1947, US Army and Air Force, they researched on test development, and Guilford and Lacey found that factor analysis played the key role in that research of test development. Next is the applications in vocational psychology. So what is vocational psychology? Vocational psychology is a field of psychology that studies how psychological principles can be applied to the process of choosing, selecting, and training for a career. Basically, it is a career-oriented field of psychology. So it also uses factor analysis very successfully, because factor analysis helps in vocational guidance by focusing more on personality profiles. What is personality profiles? Personality profiles are comprehensive assessment of an individual's psychological characteristics, behavioral tendencies, and emotional attributes. Basically, it's an overall assessment of a person in terms of behavior, characteristics, emotions, and cognitions. So this personality profile is generally used by employers in an organizational setup to evaluate applicants and employees, basically. So, in general, it is very difficult to interpret it, because if I give you a score that a person A is 47 on the dimension of satisfaction, so what does this shows? Or on the dimension of happiness, you may be, you may not be able to interpret it. But if I give you certain factors or certain variables in the happiness or loyalty or satisfaction, you're gonna get it. Okay, so this, the score of 47 would mean this. So factor analysis, it helps in interpreting the scores. What are the variables, what are the factors that can be understood using that score, so it helps in that personality profiles. Next is applications in personnel selection. Personnel is any person working in an organization. So he or she would be personnel to that organization. So in selection of personnel for certain jobs, greatest efficiency of selection is obtained if the test or test battery used measures all the significant common factors involved in the success on a job. So a particular job or a particular field requires certain characteristics or skills to get successful in that particular job. And to attain that efficiency in selection by an employer or an organization, it is very important to understand that the test or the test battery they are using for the employment measures or assess all the significant and important common factors required for a particular job. So a test proves valid only when the selection criteria that is fulfilled, the requirement of the job is fulfilled by the employee or the applicant. So for certain selection purpose, when there are common factors related to both test and success of the job, then only the selection process is successful. So factor analysis helps in identifying the main competences or dimensions required for a job, and it is used by an organization to ensure that the assessment they are using accurately measures the traits required for a job. So factor analysis in personnel selection aids in identifying the critical job competences required for a job and ensuring that the selection method is valid and reliable. Next is applications in clinical psychology. So clinical psychology find the concepts understood or developed by factor analysis very useful. So factor analysis helps in identifying the latent variables or constructs that are not directly observable, but can be inferred from related sets of variables. To understand this, let's take an example of depression. For example, I have to determine what are the symptoms which can be grouped together to understand what the depression is. So what I'll do is I'll take some symptoms of depression which I can understand or which I have found from my data, and then uh, there might be some variables or constructs which cannot be directly observed. There are some symptoms which cannot be directly observed but may be faced by the person. So factor analysis help to understand what are those latent variables or what are those hidden variables which cannot be directly observed. So factor analysis also helps in refining and improving the diagnostic systems by analyzing the patterns and symptoms. For example, I can see that low mood or change in mood is a symptom which overlap, which is basically based on the affect or the mood area, the affective component. So what I'll do is, using factor analysis, I understood that yes, there is some overlapping between the symptoms. So I refine the diagnostic system, or the main authority or the organization refine the system and uh, present it in the improved manner. So factor analysis helps in understanding the relationship between different disorders, revealing whether they share common underlying factors or distinct patterns. So with an example, let's understand it. For example, if I understand that in anxiety there is palpitations, heart racing, maybe some hassle in the body. So these are the factors that club together as anxiety. So And maybe I could see that yes, palpitation or this heart pounding is also there in depression. So these are the pattern which I can understand using factor analysis. Is yes, okay, there's a relationship between anxiety and depressive symptoms. So, and also it helps in understanding the distinct patterns. For example, in schizophrenia and depression, there are distinct patterns of symptoms. So I can understand that using factor analysis. Next and the last is applications in experimental psychology. Experimental psychology generally involves dealing with the variables that can be measured or quantified. So, and also it involves understanding new variables or finding new things, researching on things or variables or constructs. So basically, it is involved in unknown variables more than it realizes, and also its measurement is based on the test scores because we quantify the items or the variables. Just like, for example, studies of learning, memory, motivation, and thinking, they utilize measurements that belong to the category of test scores. And these variables, these psychological variables, we cannot directly observe them. We can just assume them and quantify them using the constructs or the tests. For example, I cannot see how much a person is motivated, but I can measure it using a test that is also again abstract and not a absolute one, because there is no absolute zero in that psychology. So what factor analysis do is it helps in identifying the pattern that is formed by multiple factors using factor analysis, and we can observe what variables are there. We can say that okay, a motivated person has this characteristics, and using factor analysis we can come to a fewer factors which we can use to understand how a motivated person is. So factor analysis is used to understand that whether my observed data, the obtained data, is aligned with the hypothesized construct or not. So after conducting an experiment, I understand using a factor analysis that whether the obtained data is in align with the construct I have hypothesized. For example, I have hypothesized on the constructs of learning and memory that higher learning would be there if someone's memory is good. So I understand that the data I obtained is related to memory and learning or not. So factor analysis is used in that. Now, there are some other fields in which factor analysis is used, such as human resource management, marketing management, social sciences. So let's also understand in brief how factor analysis is used in those areas. So in human resource management, HR managers, they use factor analysis to create a precise job descriptions. Job descriptions are related to what roles are to be expected out of a person in a particular job, what are the responsibilities of a person, and what are the demands of a particular job. So HR managers, they use a factor analysis to understand what is the requirement of a job. They identify factors leading to job satisfaction, that what are the factors that lead to job satisfaction in an employee. They use factor analysis to design a performance appraisal system. Performance appraisal system is a system used by HR managers or employers to rate their employees or to appraise the performance of an employee in a particular task. So there are multiple systems like bars, checklist appraisal system. So these are developed using factor analysis because uh, there are multiple factors that are appraised or rated. So to make them distinct, factor analysis is used. And also they analyze survey data to identify what are the key factors influencing the job performance of a person. Next is the marketing management. So factor analysis is used to find a correlation between various variables or factors of marketing campaign. For example, a company uh, run a campaign for marketing of their product. So what their manager or the person or a statistician would do, they would run a factor analysis to find that what are the variables, what are the factors that would lead to the success of the marketing campaign. And factor analysis is also used to identify that what are the main determinants, what are the main factors of satisfaction or consumer loyalty, that what are the factors that lead to the satisfaction in a consumer, or what are the determinants that lead to a consumer loyalty towards a particular brand or product. Next is social sciences. Social sciences disciplines include sociology, political science, economics, etc. So these scientists use factor analysis to analyze whether what are the factors underlying social networks, that what are the factors that lead to that lead people to make a social network or to end a social network. What are the factors that lead to social inequalities, prejudices, discrimination, or what are the factors that underlie, or what are the variables that underlie cultural differences? What is the voting behavior of a country or a state, and why do people vote for a particular party and not for another party? And what are other political behaviors like riots and mobs? Why do strikes, why do people do these activities? So what are the factors? So to understand and to frame a range of factors responsible for these behavior, factor analysis is used. There are multiple areas as well, like economics, but we'll discuss this in this PPT. So to conclude, factor analysis is a multivariate technique that is used to denote a class of procedures primarily used for data reduction and summarization. It is a class of procedures because there are multiple methods used, like principal access method, and there are multiple methods as well. And factor analysis can be run for exploratory and confirmatory purpose both, and its application is wide, and it is not restricted to the field of psychology only and statistics. It is also used in the fields like sociology, political science, marketing, business, human resource management, and others. But the major applications or of factor analysis is found in the areas of test development, questionnaire development, theory development, and theory construction. So this is all in the applications of factor analysis. Thank you.